Hey, Sooner fans, welcome back and happy Sunday. Very frigid Arctic like Sunday here in Oklahoma. Last time I checked, wind chill was like 4 degrees.
Oh
It's a
man.
it's a cold one out there. Yeah, got some flurries. This is first feel of winter I feel like we've had all year, like real winter cold. I
Yeah,
think it's
yeah.
supposed to, I think it's supposed to stick around all week. So I was just going to say we got a few things on the docket today. Our pod's titled "Recommitted," so we're going to talk about a few players recommitting for another year of football down at OU, which is always great news. Uh, and then we'll lead into some potential coaching changes. It's nothing that you haven't already heard about. We just kind of want to touch base on that and give an update on what we've heard so far, and then finish up with a little playoff talk, a little bit of college, and then lead into some NFL playoff talk. But your Chiefs have that number one seed. We'll get into that here in a little bit. I know you're stoked about
Mhm,
that. So yeah,
mhm.
so uh, recommitted players. So within the last, I think it's been within the last week. I think it's been in the last week. We've had 3 defensive players announce that they were going to return for their final seasons. First one
Mm.
was Dominic Williams. Um, we had him transfer in. I want to say that was spring transfer, right? That was like sometime in May
Yeah,
ish,
yeah,
something like
May,
that.
May-ish, yep.
The transfer in from TCU, that was probably our uh, probably our biggest transfer commit other than Dion Burks in this last year.
Oh,
I think that would
absolutely,
be fair
yeah.
to say. So he was pretty celebrated when he came in, had a good year. Him and Jaden Jackson really led that front this year. So excited to get him back in the fold. I, we knew if he was going to leave, it might have meant that we would have had a really great year, and he would have done really good back in August when we talked
Right,
about this before. But here
yeah,
we are, and we had a so-so season, and um, some guys weren't able to possibly stand out, like some others. So uh, he's a huge get. That'll really help that front interior line. I know Jay. I don't know anybody that's left. De, Devon, no. Who was there? Anybody that left on the interior? I need to pull that up again, but
Ashton Sanders, I think?
oh, that's what it was. Thank you. I think he was the lone interior guy that hit the portal.
Yeah,
So getting Dominique back with Jaden Jackson, Grayson Halton, David Stone, and a few others will really solidify that interior.
yeah.
And then Robert Spears Jennings was the second
Oh,
one
yeah.
to announce he was coming back. I know we're both huge fans of RSJ. Our heat-seeking missile is what we like to call him. Um,
Yeah,
I believe
he
he's a
lays the
Tulsa
thunder,
product.
man.
Yeah, he does. Tulsa product, in-state guy. He'll help that safety room with Peyton Bowen coming back and Boganowski and those guys with Billy Bowman leaving. So that was good to see him commit. And that safety room's got some young talent in it too. I'm excited to see some of those other guys get some run with Hardy and
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say Hardy is somebody I'm watching to, take over Bowman's role, and, Boganowski, of course, he's like RSJ 2.0 to me. I think
mm-hmm.
he's in just another thumper. You remember that hit in the main
Spring
game?
game.
I
Oh,
s- the main where he came down and just I felt like he like killed the kid.
yeah,
Like that's so like you could see how Brandon
yeah.
Hall has identified guys that fit specific roles, and
Mm-hmm.
you have an RSJ, and then you bring in a Boganowski, and you're seeing similar play, and then you see Hardy and Bowman, you see similar play. Um, he's done a pretty good job of identifying that high school talent that that can project into being the next guy. So yeah, and I'm really hoping with RSJ staying that we keep the 3 high safety look that we have that we've ran since Brent has been here.
Mhm.
Ran it in the Arizona Bowl game, ran it versus Tennessee, ran it versus Alabama. It's always good to have 3 quality safeties that can kind of expand your play bag on defense and give offense different looks. And it's also a good thing, as you're a defense, opposing offenses don't really quite know what defense to expect if you're that multiple. If you can go 3 high safety and 3 down linemen, and then you can go back to run your 4-2-5, and it's good to be that versatile. And I think RSJ coming back gives you that opportunity. And the way that Brandon Hall is recruited with Hardy and others and Boganowski, that they're going to keep having that multiple defense week to week.
Yeah, and we're mentioning the freshmen already on campus, but the recruiting class, this recruiting class was a really good safety class with Omarion Robinson, Guillory, and there's one
Yeah.
other. His name's escaping me right this second, but just one of the better safety classes that they've had in a few years as well. So I think that room's well stocked for years to come at this point. So looking forward to that.
Is Guillory a safety or is he a corner?
He may be a corner, and again, the names are escaping me. I'll pull up the.
I mean,
I'll
they
pull
can,
up the.
they can kind of move guys around, but I was just
Yeah,
curious. I thought,
yeah, yeah. No, that the other guy, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but it'll come to me. Um, and then the third guy this week that announced his intention to come back, a guy I know is one of your favorites on the team. Just a big fan. Kendall Dobie got
oh
got
yeah,
hurt in the Tennessee game. Just a great cheetah guy that can cover anybody on the field. And I know you love him in that slot to pick up those other guys, but him coming back is just a huge deal because I was worried about him leaving and having to find a cheetah because we would have had Dolby and McCullough both, leave the same year.
mhm.
So that was a big sign. I know you were pretty pumped about to see that anyway. So
Yeah. I've been a fan of Dolby's game for quite a while. Being that third corner that can lock down a slot is invaluable in today's modern defense because offenses always put their best receiver in the slot and really work safeties and most teams don't have a third corner to cover slot, and Dolby fits that role so perfectly. And I appreciate his he gives you a blitz game. He's a terrific blitzer. He's a terrific open field tackler. He's very smart. He doesn't get himself out of position with some of the motions and the shifts and everything that these offenses do. Yeah, he's been a favorite of mine, and he's a stud, man. I was looking forward to him shutting down some of these slot receivers in the SEC. Next year, let's looking at some of the slots in the SEC. There's not like none of them really jump off the page to me like some of them did this year. Luther
yeah,
Burden was a he ate
mhm.
us alive. Go look where he lined up on that 3rd and 18 play. He was in the slot. So and he got those slot fades, and missing Adobe really did hurt us this year. And he's valuable, and I can't wait to see him get out there and play against the best.
Yeah, and he should be ready to go probably over the summer, I would think, with the particular injury he had, right? Since it
Yeah,
wasn't like an ACL, it was more of a dislocated
yeah,
foot,
ankle.
ankle.
It
Yeah,
was ankle. I thought it was ankle. There were some
yeah,
videos of him walking on it and rehabbing it. It does
hmm
look like it's going to take him some time. So
sure.
rooting for him to come back. I mean, if you're saying it's going to be summer, if you heard summer, man, that's going to be real tough to rehab until summer and be ready for 16, 12 game season. So
Yeah,
hopefully that he can have a speedy recovery. Jaden Gibson's in the same boat too. We're
That's
waiting.
true.
Jaden Gibson. His what was his injury?
It was
It
a
was
knee.
hamstring, right? Oh, it was a knee.
I thought it was a knee, and I thought that was like in early fall camp, if memory serves me right.
Yeah, yeah.
So it'll be.
He's another one we got to keep an ear on for how well they're doing.
Mhm. Yeah, I just
Those
looked
two
it up.
guys we need them so bad. We need
Yeah,
them next year. We need them.
yeah, I looked it up. Marcus Wimberly's the other safety that we got in on this latest
That's
recruiting
right.
class, and then Cortland
Yeah,
Guillory and Malik Hawkins are the two corners. So just a really
got
really good
got it.
really good room. Yeah. So yeah, we have 3 guys that have recommitted, and I realize we've had upwards of almost 30 go into the portal, and about 8 or 9 that we've got in from the portal. And so the way I look at it, you're recruiting guys to come in from the portal, but if you can recruit current players to come back, that's as good, if not better, than getting these portal guys
Oh,
in.
absolutely.
So I think people need to make sure and keep that in mind, that bringing back a current players, sometimes just as good a recruiting win as some 5-star guy that's sitting out in the portal.
Oh,
So
I much rather keep our better current
yeah.
players. They know your system, they know your
Hmm.
culture, your language, everything. You cannot let your best talent leave. And looking at this transfer you just mentioned, the 30 players that left, I mean, you can count what, one or two that you would say that you probably wish they would stay based on
Yeah.
talent. Maybe not
Yeah.
personality, but based on talent, like Nick
Yeah.
Anderson and maybe one other. But I mean, those 3 guys that we mentioned, um, I mean, huge wins. Those wins are for me much outweigh losing Allie for me.
Sure.
Because either whether Allie would, I mean, I got conflicting information on Allie, whether he wanted to leave or he didn't want to. Like, he had full reign of defense, and then some people, like, Brandon Drum mentioned that uh, BV was hands off on the defense. Well, if he was hands off, then it was Allie's defense. So then why would he leave? And then some other people say, well, no, Brent is a micromanager and he didn't want to have run the 3-3-5. And it's like, well, it can't be both. So don't, whatever the conflicting information is,
Yeah.
him leaving, I mean, getting these 3 guys back is much more of a win than Allie, because at the end of the day, it's Brent's defense, and Brent is it's going to be his call, and it. I mean, so much more of a win. I think we came out of this transfer portal, and even with coaches' moves, and a plus.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. And now we lose Bowman and Stutzman. And so we've kind of limited our losses on defense at this point, as far
And
as guys
Downs.
that could have
Don't
got.
forget
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Ethan
Ethan
Downs.
Downs as well. So, uh, but you could have lost all the guys early, and so we were able to maintain those. So that's always a good thing. So happy about that this week, getting those guys back in the fold. So
And
just
for the
waiting on R. Mason Thomas now. He's kind of
Yep.
the last domino that to drop out there, whether he could stay or decide he wants to leave early. And it all depends on that grade that he gets, I'm guessing. um, what is it, if you get a top 2 round grade, something like that,
You
then you should
go.
go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First, second round, you go.
Yeah.
And our Mason Thomas is probably right there on that line,
2 3,
based on just
second
production.
third round.
Yeah, the 2-3, because like he's only had really one season of being healthy. He was definitely our best pass rusher, but you look at this class of pass rushers, there's quite a few really good pass rushers out there,
Hmm.
and he was not really technically in the maybe in the top 3 or 4 in the SEC. He probably is right there on that line. So yeah, he's taking his time with his decision, and I I lean that he stays and puts out another year of production and goes into a different draft class and where he could be probably in the top 3 or so 4 in the NFL, like in the draft period, versus kind
Mhm.
of being in like the top 3 or 4 in your own conference. So I think he comes back.
Yep.
I think he puts on another great year, and then he's going to make himself a really big bag of money.
Yep, I agree. I think there's a little bit of peer pressure too when you see these other three guys come back. That
Yeah,
that never
momentum,
hurts. And you're just like, oh,
right?
okay. If these guys are wanting to come back, I'll just go ahead and stick it out another year as well. So yeah, so I think that's it on the portal slash retain player front right now, as far as guys that are coming back.
Yeah.
So
I mean, kind of staying on topic with the defense. I mean,
mm,
if you get our Mason Thomas back and you have RSJ and you've got Hardy and Boganowski that you've recruited in the safety room, really the only like glaring need right now is a second corner. And like
right,
you have your Eli and Gentry is dealing with some of his shoulder issues. You really need a two corner to come in and kind of raise your floor a little bit of what, because you don't want to go in the season with this particular corner room now that you've lost Vickers. Jacoby Johnson, for whatever reason, Grass Monster kept attacking him, and he couldn't keep his feet. So you want to bring a two corner to push him, raise the floor to the room, and then you can be locked and ready for another top 5 defense in the SEC.
can't have enough lockdown corners in the league just to
Yep.
just to free up just to free up the other guys, let them do what they're supposed to. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, you mentioned Zach Alley, so segueing over to potential coaching changes. Zach Alley leaving, left a void on that defensive side, and early on, a lot of rumors out there that Wes Goodwin, who I guess is being let go from Clemson. I don't know the right word, fired, let go, whatever. His
Fired.
name,
He was fired.
his name gained a lot of traction early as a potential replacement for Alley here.
Hmm.
As a linebacker coach, DC, what role that he would have, I'm not sure. So some of that's kind of calmed down a little bit. I haven't heard as much in the last few days, about him, being for sure the guy. And then, of course, you have the
Hmm.
in-house guys with Brandon Hall and Jay Valai and Coach Bates potentially, but haven't heard a lot of other names outside the program at this point. And you know how OU is; they just keep everything quiet anyway, a lot of times. So you
Right.
just never know.
Right.
But as we stand right now, it's Wes Goodwin or an internal hire. And I guess we'll just kind of sit and see how that plays out. I wouldn't think anything would drag out more than another week or two at the most, in that regard on the defensive
Yeah.
side. And then the Joe John Finley saga continues. We don't know how much longer he's going to be coaching with OU or on the staff, or how that's going to play out. Who his replacement's going to be. Just we don't know. We just assumed it would have already kind of happened by now, and it's just
I mean, it
dragging out.
this is kind of strange. I mean, we played our bowl game on the 27th, correct? So it's
Mm-hmm.
gonna, and tomorrow is a new business day. So you're leaning towards 10 days after your final game. I mean, that's a pretty long time. I mean, for letting a coach go, or having him find somewhere or whatever the situation may be, it's kind of, because technically this has been working in, like it's been worked in since what? South Carolina?
I was going to say
After South Carolina.
early November or late October. We just assumed this has been kind of in the
Right.
works, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But
So
whatever. If what would happen to you, like what would you think? What would be your first like thought if the rest of the offensive staff this is it. This is the staff. No moves are made. Do you feel good about the staff for 2025? Just Latrell out, Ben Arbuckle in. That's the
Yeah.
only change for 2025.
No, I want to see one or two changes made. We just talked about the obvious one. I've been on the fence. I've been on the fence with DeMarco. His rooms have just kind of been, I don't know how to explain it. You just don't know what's going on with that room from one week to the next. And he's recruited decent, but I don't know if I see guys necessarily develop under DeMarco, so to speak. He's the only one I'm kind of iffy with, and I think he kind of tested the waters last year as well, and had some NFL people looking at him. So Brent may be one of these that he kind of has maybe he's got a coach in waiting for like a tight end right now. The Brian Lepak, or however you say his name at Kansas State, was a name that was floating around out there. Maybe he has a coach in waiting. He's just allowing Joe John Finley to find his next job. And I know some of us don't like that. Brent's the CEO. He had to go ahead and make the firings and do all that stuff like the coaches normally do. But there may be something like that going on. So no, I don't. Yeah, this exact staff I would not want to see back. And if Kevin Johns is probably gone as well, because he was kind of the interim quarterback coach, I think, for the last part of the season. And didn't Arbuckle bring an analyst with him?
And then two analysts, as I thought. That was two.
And so, will Arbuckle be the quarterback coach as well as the OC, or does he have a quarterback coach he's bringing with him? I thought he had someone he was bringing with him.
He brought an analyst over, but I thought it was still in the analyst role, but he was a quarterback coach.
Oh, okay.
I thought.
And they made that change this past year where analysts can be on the field coaching, so maybe that kind of solves that problem right there. Is that he can be that on-field guy working with the quarterbacks.
Yeah, I would assume he would be the quarterbacks coach.
Right.
I assume Arbuckle was going to be coaching quarterbacks. He brought an analyst that happened to also be a quarterbacks coach as well, but he was an analyst role. That was my understanding of how it was being said, but I could be wrong.
No, I think you may be right. So what about you?
I mean, I want my OC coaching quarterbacks or coaching like a tight end room or something. Like if the guy is a quarterbacks guru, then he should obviously be coaching quarterbacks. But if he's not like a coach's guru, like what Kelvin Wilson did. Kelvin Wilson was a great OC, but he coached tight ends. And why? Because we had Joey Halsey, right? That was a quarterback teaching a quarterback. Bradford, or no, not Joey Halsey. Who do we have as our quarterbacks coach in 08? Do you remember?
No.
Testing you.
Quarterback coach in 08?
Yeah, who was our? Yes.
Oh my gosh, I have no idea.
I'm gonna look it up. I don't know. Joey Halsey was his backup.
Steve Spurrier Jr.
Okay.
I'm just throwing some name out at this point because you put me on the spot.
So Kevin Wilson was the tight ends and fullbacks coach. And then quarterbacks was Josh Heupel.
Oh, okay.
So you have a quarterback, you have experience, like quarterback experience coaching quarterbacks, because if you're an OC that doesn't know how to teach and develop this position, then don't do it. Like we had this last year. And so then you coach a tight end spot or an H-back spot, but you bring in a guy that with that experience. And Ben Arbuckle doesn't really have that experience, but being that Mateer is his guy, like they obviously have a great working relationship the last a year or so. So that would make a little bit more sense. But if you don't, go to coach the tight ends, go coach a small little group, and then just focus on the vision of the offense, and that's it. Don't worry about all the technical drills and everything. Let's just I'm going to coach these tight ends, and then I'm going to focus on game planning. But I assumed Ben was coming in to coach quarterbacks because he knows the quarterback and, rock and roll.
Yeah. Yeah. So no other changes that I can think of other than maybe just some administrative, changes. I think we had someone leave to West Virginia. So yeah, moving away from coaching changes, playoffs. So the college football playoffs is down to the semifinals. There's a couple of good quarterfinal games. That Arizona State Texas game that was a great back and forth. A couple other games where Penn State won pretty easily. Notre Dame handled Georgia. Georgia playing with their backup quarterback, but Notre Dame played a good game, and then Ohio State got their revenge on Oregon. I don't know if there's a hotter team in the country right now than Ohio State.
They are
they're
scolding hot.
Yeah.
Scolding hot.
Jeremiah Smith is him. He is the guy. I haven't
That's
seen.
a receiver, guys. That right there is a wide receiver. We're hoping that Burks can kind of get that same level of like badass that Jeremiah Smith has had versus Oregon, but Chip Kelly and Jeremiah Smith absolutely torched the Oregon defense. An Oregon defense that I appreciate. I watched a bit of Oregon defense. I like their scheme, but they were completely outmatched talent wise. It wasn't even close. Like I don't know what happened. Ohio State was playing below par, and maybe it was the booing of the fans. I don't know, but they've kicked it into a high gear, and they're living up to their roster right now. And I don't know who's going to stop them. Texas looks underwhelming to me.
Yeah.
That offensive line of theirs gets pushed around. Like it's strange. Every time they talk about Texas offensive line, first round draft picks and development and high recruiting classes, blah blah. They look every game of Texas, even with us, they did not look like a team on offensive line that's like gonna bully you and just take over a game. And it's gonna get them. It's gonna get them beat if their offensive line is gonna keep playing the way that they play, which is very. I mean, it's soft. Ohio State's gonna beat the living crap out of them. I mean, when they see them.
With Texas, if you can eliminate their screenplay and then kind of limit Helms on what he can do, because they did a really good job most of the game and taking Helms out of it. He got his, of course, there in the overtime, but they limited him most of the game. And if you can take away that screenplay, Texas becomes very ordinary, and you can line up with them. And you mentioned Ohio State. Will Howard's playing out of his mind right now, and I've been biggest. I've been down on Will Howard all year long. And you said, who's going to beat Ohio State? Will Howard. Like, if anybody's going to beat Ohio State, I think it's going to be him, honestly, because he's playing really good right now. And if he keeps that up, I think they're going to roll all the way to a natty.
What I'm seeing, when you look at teams like, I know we're going all over the place, but Justin Jefferson, the best receiver, and they're just rolling. Then you look at Jeremiah Smith and Will Howard, and it's easy throwing those balls when you've got 5 yards in all directions wide open. It's an easy throw to make, and when you got an offensive coordinator that can get guys in space and keep it super simple. That's tough. I mean, they're playing to their talent, and they've stepped it up in the playoffs. And Ohio State looks scary, man. And I do not like Ryan Day. He's got that department store manager look to him. I don't like him. Like he looks like a Walmart manager. No offense to any of the Walmart managers. I'm just saying he looks like he looks like he manages a Best Buy. I mean, like.
Yeah.
He's selling cameras and
Yeah.
PlayStations.
I'm trying to think of some sketchy career,
I mean, everyone goes used
some
car salesman,
yeah,
used
something
car
like that.
salesman.
But
But I just
no,
see him in like those polos that are really rough, and he's got and he buttons it up to the top button, that kind of
yeah,
weird.
and we need not to talk too much about Ohio State, but they have one of the better 1-2 punches in the backfield too, with Travion Henderson and Junkins.
Yeah, they
They're loaded, ton of talent. I expect them to roll the Longhorns, and I kind of expect the Irish to. I expect the Irish to maybe beat Penn State 12-9 or some weird score like that. Just a defensive battle. Those teams are very
yeah
similar. I just see the rugby match going on like the whole game. Um, but
yeah.
if Notre Dame can take away Tyler Warren from Penn State, that guy's a weapon at tight end, man, best tight end, H
I
back,
oh,
like that guy.
man.
I know. I had to mention him just so you could shake your head and be like,
It
why
is
can't we have that guy on our team?
it,
Yeah,
just it doesn't make sense, man. Teams used to be jealous of our H back. Now we don't even have one. We
yeah,
used to be like the bee's knees of the country when it came to tight ends and H backs. Sorry, I had to say
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. So you on the same page as me? You see Ohio State, Notre Dame championship. I just don't
they
want an all
they
Big Ten matchup. So
they're peaking at the right time. They're going to go finish it.
yeah,
They're peaking at the right time.
yeah. So switching over to the National Football League playoffs. I want to say Denver was beaten up on your second team Chiefs last time I
Yeah,
looked, so
yeah,
they're likely to clinch that last spot in the AFC as well. So
yeah.
we should
I
have
mean,
all of our playoff spots sealed up.
yeah, we literally ran our like B and C team. There were
No,
guys
yeah,
that
for real.
I had never hadn't seen all year playing in that game, and I was like, "Who is this?" I'm like, "Wasn't he on the practice squad? Like, did they? Are you able to call people up? Like, what the heck?" But yeah,
Yeah,
but you know, that I am a Chiefs fan. For all those that are listening, I'm a diehard Chiefs fan, not a bandwagon Chiefs fan. I lived through the dark ages. I lived through the dark times. It was not fun. So now that the Chiefs are trying to go for their three in a row, Brad and I actually have a bet on it. We bet. I gave
that's
him the
right.
field. Yeah, you took I gave you the field, and that's how
Hmm.
confident I am that the Chiefs are gonna win a third in a row.
There we go. So here's the what the NFC looks like right now. And this is subject to change with the late game tonight when Minnesota goes to Detroit because they're playing for the number 1 seed and the division
Oh, cool.
title. So you could just flip Detroit and Minnesota if Minnesota wins tonight. Detroit has the bye right now as we stand, and then of course Philadelphia, Los Angeles, and Tampa Bay are all hosting because they're the other 3 division winners. Um, so yeah, what kind of stands out to you there, Rob?
I have been a fan since maybe the summer of the Minnesota Vikings. I a lot of uh a lot of the news headlines and the hype and everything goes to the Lions, and rightfully so. Their skill positions that they've drafted to that offense, like Laporta and a healthy Jameis Williams, and of course Amon St. Brown, and then from last draft, uh, Gibbs. I mean, they have drafted incredibly well in the skill position department. And then, we know who Goff is. He's limited, but he's a veteran quarterback. And when you've got that many weapons, defense gets stretched, just all over the field. But I've liked what the Vikings have done. They let Kirk Cousins walk, and we see what Kirk Cousins is doing now. He's got a noodle arm. So they made a good move there in the offseason. Brian Flores, the DC there, has a huge chip on his shoulder. And what he's doing defensively, from a scheme point, awesome, like unreal what he's doing there. The Vikings is basically taking like what Spags does in Kansas City, but then doubles down on it with tons of pressure.
Yeah.
And he is doing something that a lot of DCs in the offseason are going to pour through his tape to see if they can't replicate it, because then it's a copycat league. I'm keeping my eye on the Vikings. I know the Vikings
Yep.
have lost the lines already. I know you said that they're playing tonight. I want to watch that game. That's why I want to wrap this up.
Sure.
But the Vikings Lions, I don't put a lot of stock in regular season games, especially right now. I know they're up for a first round bye, but you're not throwing the kitchen sink to get a first round bye against your opponent that you know if you want to go to the Super Bowl, you're going to play again. So Vikings and Lions tonight, I'll watch, but it's gamemanship, right? Brad, you're a coach, you're a team. You've already lost to them once. You don't want to throw everything out there knowing that even if you get a first round bye, you're going to face them again. You're going to have to face them a third time. So you kind of have to play. Like, how do you play that? How would you play that?
I can tell you, Detroit will throw the kitchen sink out there. They don't know any
Oh,
different.
that they don't care.
So I promise Detroit
oh,
will, like, yeah,
I would rather slow
they're
play it
going
a
to
little
page
bit.
30. They're going to page 30 of the playbook tonight. And yeah, you're trying to win because it's a difference on, being a 1 seed or going on the road next week to Tampa Bay. So I just don't see anybody holding back tonight. They know each other so well. I don't think it matters anyway on what you
Right,
do,
that's
in my
true.
opinion.
No, that's true. Yep.
But I
I
think
keep
it's going to be
forgetting
a
that
great game.
they're they're division rivals, right? Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I forgot about that. No, that's a good point. They're division rivals. They play each other twice a year,
Yeah.
all year, every year. So like they're not gonna. Yeah, you're right. No, like the Vikings, I really like what Brian Flores is doing on defense, and I feel like what he's done, there's gonna be a lot of people that copy it. And then on the other side, you've got Ben Johnson running that offense, where a lot of people in the offseason are gonna copy him. So, um, I it's gonna be one of those two teams. I'm personally rooting for the Vikings. I always lean towards the teams that play good defense. I feel like it translates going to playoffs. I think you get into the playoffs, I think defenses always step up. And if I was going to take a stab on who the NFC champion is going to be, I will take the Vikings.
Okay. I like that. They'll have to go on the road a couple of games, you know,
Yep. Yep.
next week and then the week after that, potentially. So if I'm, I've been on Detroit bandwagon the last couple of years, partly because they only won 1 or 2 games. What was it, 4 years ago? I mean, it wasn't very long ago. They won.
Yeah.
They were not a winning team. Um, so I like them getting to play at home throughout the playoffs. And for me, kind of an underdog or a long shot, I like that Commanders team. I think Daniels has had a good rookie season, and the coach there is defensive minded. So you got the young quarterback leading that offense, and then a defensive minded coach. And they've hung around with about every team they played this year and upset some teams. So that's a team I'm kind of looking at that make a little bit of noise if they can, get by the Rams next week and move on from there. But yeah, it's going to be. I mean, you look at all those teams there. That's a good field in the NFC. A lot of good matchups.
Yeah. I yeah. This is definitely at least in the last 3 years. I feel like this crop of teams in the NFC is by far the best we've had. I don't think it's ever been this deep. This is, I mean, you got Eagles that we haven't even mentioned, and they're really dang good. And Tampa is a really, really sneaky dark horse as well. And then you mentioned the Commanders being a dark horse. I mean, this is a really deep,
Mm-hmm.
deep set of teams.
Yeah, you could, like, any of those 6 teams could win next week. and I wouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
surprised, honestly.
Yep.
I know your Vikings
Yep.
are good, but Tampa Bay's already beat Detroit and someone else at home this year, so they're capable. So yeah, that's the NFC. I think this is how the AFC stands with Denver being ahead right now. So to me, when I look at this, it's a little more underwhelming, or I don't know the right word. Just there's a few teams on here that really don't jump off the page like they do in the NFC, like the Chargers and
Yeah.
Harbaugh in their first year, and the
Broncos.
Texans have just been
Yep.
at times, So
Yep. Yep.
it's Kansas City. To me, it's Kansas City, Ravens, or Buffalo, and I think everybody else is, just in the field on the AFC side. But and
Yeah.
there'll be
I'm not trying to.
there'll be a game in Arrowhead when it's like snowing and stuff here in these playoffs at some point. Because anytime I see the
Yeah.
Chiefs or Buffalo being a 1 and 2 seed, you just know there's going to be one of those snowy playoff games down the road.
Yeah.
It's weird too, because a lot of these AFC teams do play outdoors. It's just a little different than the NFC. So
Mm-hmm.
I always wonder why I know Buffalo's building a new stadium and stuff like that, and I don't think it's going to be enclosed. It just kind of surprises me sometimes with
Hey,
that.
you got
But
to keep that home field advantage. It's home field
I know,
advantage.
yeah. Hey, they got the Bills Mafia. They got the home field advantage already.
Yeah, Bills Mafia is absolutely wild. They are crazy. I saw a guy light a cup full of Fireball on fire, chug it, and then jump off a snow mound on top of a table and broke the table. And then he stood up and then he took another shot of Fireball. And then I saw, and then I mean it's just crazy. They're nuts. They're
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah, they
nuts.
are.
They are
Hey,
bonkers. I
you
will
gotta
never go
stay
there
warm. You
wearing
gotta stay
wearing
warm.
red and yeah, you
Yeah.
gotta stay warm. Yeah, yep. Uh, yeah, I'm biased.
Yeah.
But Kansas City, they're gonna be a tough out.
Sure.
They're gonna be a tough out. You have to. The last time they lost they lost in the 2021, they lost to that conference championship game against the Bengals. So it's been 4 years, and they and if you go back and watch that game, it was fluky. I'm not dive into it, but it was fluky. So you look at a Chiefs Super Bowl run, you have to beat Andy Reid, who is 21-4 in bye weeks. Then you have to beat them at home. So you only got 2 weeks to beat them at home, and then a 2-week break and have to beat probably the best coaching staff in the league. That's why it's so damn hard, because Andy Reid and Spagnuolo are the best 1-2 punch in the NFL. Ben Johnson and what's the head coach for Lions? What's his name again? Guys, I had it
Dan
and I
Campbell.
lost it. Campbell,
Dan
thank you.
Campbell. Yeah.
So Campbell,
Yeah.
and yeah, Dan Campbell. But you know, Reed and Spagnuolo having to try to beat them at home, beat Mahomes at home, and then turn around and try to beat Reed and the coaching staff after a 2-week break is incredibly difficult. I'm not saying it can't be done, but
Yeah.
you have to have like stars align. And going back to that Bengals game where they lost, it was fluky. The ball just didn't bounce the right way. I mean, there was a fumble in it where the ball just, I mean, it was just a
Mm-hmm.
turnover here, and a tip pass. There was a tip pass that went in, that destroyed a third down. It's a fluky game. And I think that's the only thing that's going to prevent the Chiefs to getting to the Super Bowl and winning, is that it just could be a fluky game. I mean, and here's another thing. The Chiefs have already beat the best roster that year twice. The Eagles 2 years ago had the best roster in the NFL and they lost. And then last year the 49ers had the best roster in NFL and they lost. And Mahomes has had a high ankle sprain. We've had players injured. If Mahomes is healthy and the offensive line is healthy, that is a really tough out. And that's why, I made that bet with you. I think
Yeah.
I think Chiefs
You
make
know,
history.
yeah, one of the crazy stats this year is they've won 15 games and they haven't scored over 30 points.
Yeah.
And so
And Mahomes is having his worst year again.
yeah, and so I just don't think so. When I think of Chiefs, and most people are the same way I am, when you think of Chiefs, you think of Mahomes automatically. But they hang their hat on their defense,
Absolutely.
and people don't think of that when they think of the Chiefs. Mahomes gets so much publicity and recognition, and that's what people hear. And Kelsey, you got the Kelseys and
Hmm.
stuff like that
Right.
too. But they hang their hat on their defense. I think they're probably. I know they're top 5 in the league, and probably I think they may be top 3. Honestly, like Eagles are up there, Chiefs, and a couple. I don't know. I don't have
Yeah,
it in
yeah.
front of me.
So, and I'll say this: this defense that the Chiefs have last year, it was more predicated on the strength of their secondary.
Hmm.
Their secondary, with L'Jarius Sneed and with Trent McDuffie, they were locked down your two best receivers, and they made life living hell for you. This year, pass rush. Getting Charles Mweyu, who is a former Longhorn, he's healthy. We brought him in, I think, last year. Getting him paired with Chris Jones on that defensive line is massive, absolutely massive, because they're going to be able to put them both inside or put even stack Mweyu and Jones on one side, and those two are really dang good pass rushers. It's defense might have changed a little bit, but wait for number 90. Keep your eye on number 90, Charles Mweyu, and 95. Well, obviously Jones, but look for number 90 because he's back and healthy. He's been playing for I think the last 5 games, and since he's been back, Jones' sack totals have gone up. The entire team's sack totals have gone up. And I think that's going to be their strength if they can get after the quarterback. I think they're going to be a real tough out, and I got them winning.
Yeah,
Hopefully, I'm right.
yeah, yeah. I'll take the Lions to win it all. Because I want to pick an NFC team since your Chiefs will be in there, because I want it to come down to the Super Bowl. I want us to be head
Yeah,
to
yeah,
head going in there. So I'm just going
sure.
to pick the Lions, even though I don't really have a strong team that I follow other than the Cowboys, which I don't like to admit too much. Um, yeah, no. So it's going to be fun. Playoffs start next Saturday. So Super Bowl's in New Orleans this year. So
Oh,
February 9th. It
yeah,
always feels later and later.
yeah. That is strange.
This
I thought
longer
last year was like the
season,
second or third.
this longer season, and then there's always 2 weeks sometimes in between the championship games and the Super Bowl. So, and Kendrick Lamar will be your halftime performance this year.
Mm.
Yeah,
I don't really listen to this stuff.
yeah, that's fine.
I don't.
It's better than some
Is
others.
that the
So
one that was beefing? Is that the one of the
I
rappers
think
that was
so.
beefing on another? It was Kendrick
We've
Lamar and Drake,
we've
right?
talked about this at work before, and I forgot who it was, but I think it was those two.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The 17 diss tracks that they threw at each other. They were like
yeah,
throwing diss tracks and everything.
yeah. And it was
I
just
just like listening. I like listening to people that are not in it like me trying to explain it, and they're like, "Yeah, he said this, this, and this." It's like, anyway. It's just like,
all right. Yeah. So playoff start, and college has Thursday and Friday night games just so they don't compete with the NFL. It's just is kind of weird. But we'll have some Thursday and Friday night college football this week. So yeah, yeah. You got anything else? I think we covered a lot of bases this show.
yeah, I think it's definitely the news is slowed down a little bit, and here in the next few weeks, I think late this month we'll have our Benham Arbuckle John Mateer breakdown, which will be a lot of fun to do. In the meantime, we'll just keep talking playoffs and any transfer portal news, and then we can probably start slowly getting into some Oklahoma City Thunder and Oklahoma softball, and start diving into that, which will be fun. We've got like 8 more months of off season to go, so got plenty of time to kill until then.
We do.
We're gonna
We
be
do.
doing we're gonna have another guest. We have one guest that's gonna come on and do the Arbuckle. I'll have another guest that's gonna come on, and actually 2 guests that'll come on and talk defense probably like later February. We'll look into Brent Venables' defense and his play bag. We'll just go through it much like offense. So we'll have a clinic series through the off season. We'll talk softball and Thunder and all kinds of stuff. So
Yep. Yep. All right. Well, appreciate everyone listening in, and especially for those that live local, be safe out there. The wind chills are awful. If you have any pets, make sure you bring them in. And everybody stay safe. Have a great week, and we will see you next time. Boomer.
thanks, guys.